Cook, and it's a great pleasure to be making this video today for the E-Flute Fest from my home in Cambridgeshire. I'm going to be talking about a number of my flutes, playing a little bit and demonstrating a few techniques on these. And I'm going to start with the xiao meditation flute from China. This was the first non-Western flute that I got about 12 years ago, and I really love the sound of Chinese folk music and also love the gentle tone quality of this instrument. I'm going to play a short piece called Canding Love Song, and it's a popular Chinese folk tune from the Sichuan province. So the xiao meditation flute, or the xiao, is a vertically played end-blown notch flute. And if you look at the mouthpiece, then it's a notch cut into the end of the flute, which you put underneath your bottom lip, and you produce the same embouchure as you do on the flute. And you play with a gentle and very steady airstream. If I stand back, you can see that the angle at which I place this is not quite 90 degrees. And I'm keeping my chin up to play that. The sound that's produced is very gentle and very quiet, and you can get a 2-octave span easily, and you can get a few 3rd octave notes as well with experimentation. And because of the very gentle sound quality, this instrument was considered quite a reflective sort of instrument, and the kind of music that was played on it was court music and religious music, sort of quite meditational purposes. It's nice to explore those qualities of the instrument today when we play. The Native American flute is one of the nicest world flutes to play, in my opinion, and I got mine to play in a show and really enjoying playing and improvising on it at the moment. The sound is produced by blowing into the end in the same sort of way as you do on a recorder or a whistle. And that easy sound production makes it a really approachable instrument for any level of player. The flute has a long association in the Native American culture with healing and meditation and kind of at oneness with nature. And because of those reasons, it's quite a popular instrument. This flute is in the key of D, and it's a bass instrument. They're available, like all the other flutes, in lots of different keys, and you can get alto versions and treble versions, which are much smaller. It has 6 finger holes and no thumb hole, and when they arrive they are covered with a leather binding on the 3rd hole, and you can remove that when you want to. The fingering pattern, and I'm going to name the notes as the pitch as they come out on mine, is D, F, G, A, C, D, and that produces a minor pentatonic scale. Which is one of the most popular and distinctive scales that's used on this flute. Just a little tip for practice, I found it useful to practice going from the A, C and D and back down again and round that a few times, just to get used to putting my middle finger on my right hand down for the C and the D, and then taking it off again for the A. This tune works really nicely for this flute. It's Colours of the Wind from Pocahontas. I'm going to play the first part of it quite plainly and then add some ornamentation to the second part. So I'm just going to demonstrate the first part of this tune. F, A, C, C, A, G, G, F, G, D. F, A, C, C, A, G, G, F, G. And the rest you can work out. You use a nice gentle airstream, a very legato style of playing, and some vibrato can really colour the sound. In the Pocahontas piece, I was using gentle articulation for the repeated notes, and actually in amongst florid playing, when you're improvising and using lots of ornamentation, some gentle articulation can really add character to what you're doing, and it's really quite effective. I'm going to demonstrate some of the ornamentation that I used. So I'm doing little mordants. And that last one, it's nice to take two fingers off, and then you get an interval of a fourth. This one works nicely as well, but it's nice to sometimes have the variation. I just did that slowly so you could see which fingers I was taking off. When that's up to speed, it sounds really effective. And you can either tongue or you can just have it all legato. I like the articulated version of that. Other things that work really nicely are trills, particularly if you vary the speed. Turns work really nicely. Finger vibrato works really nicely. This works well on all of these flutes, and it's just where you're just doing sometimes called a tombrel trill in flute music, but you're not covering the hole properly, but doing a little trill. Again, if you vary the speed, it can be quite nice. Doesn't work so well on that one. On long notes, it can be very nice at the ends of phrases. Some slides can work well. Play around, have fun, enjoy improvising. Chinese dizi, and it's a very popular and a very distinctive sounding instrument. Before I talk a little bit more about it and demonstrate some techniques, I'm going to play a piece called Red Red Moon, which is an opera theme from the Shanghai Opera. So you would have heard from that there is a very distinctive sound quality, and it's quite strident and possibly quite nasal sounding. And this is created by a little tiny piece of very delicate thin paper or a membrane, which is placed over an extra hole between where the embouchure hole and the fingers are. It's, as I say, it's delicate and they don't always behave, but what you can do if it's not buzzing, or what you can do to warm up the instrument anyway, is with your fingers covered, just very gently blowing some air. It should just warm it up. And then if it's still not behaving, or if it's not buzzing enough, if you just lightly touch it and give it a very gentle press, then that sometimes helps. They do become old, or they lose their tautness, and then they don't work properly, and so they need replacing, and sometimes they break as well, or quite often they break, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a minute. So another thing that you can do to improve the quality of the sound is to play with a nice strong airstream and really direct the air down into the flute with your top lip, so it's that real strength of blowing, and some nice vibrato also helps with the quality of the sound. If you blow too gently, you get this. So not really any buzz. Sometimes the membranes are behaving quite well and they buzz a little bit, but it does usually take a little bit more pressure and a little bit more oomph to the sound. I'm going to demonstrate on an instrument, on a dizi, in the same key, where I've replaced the buzzing paper with some masking tape, so you can hear the sound of the instrument when it doesn't have that buzz in it. Etc. So it's a nice sound, and it's a lovely clear bright bamboo kind of sound, and there's something to be said for playing the flute in this way. If you were to buy one of these and it doesn't come, sometimes they've come with the piece of paper, the membrane being done for you, but because I said they're quite delicate, you can't rely on that, and it might have broken or it might have come loose. So you might feel that just to learn the fingering patterns and to be able to just play on this instrument straight away, that it's nice just to cover with some masking tape, and it works perfectly well. Now, in just a second, I'm going to show how to replace, or how to put one of these on and hopefully make it start buzzing. Before I do that, I'm just going to describe the flute and show the fingering pattern. So it's a 6-finger instrument with no thumb hole. These at the bottom are for tuning and for decorative purposes. Similarly to the bansuri and to the Irish whistle, you play a scale fingered like a D major scale. So just ignoring what the key of this instrument is for a second, we're going to call that fingering D. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, no fingers, C sharp, and D, and you can go up the second octave, and the top D is either that or that, depending on the instrument. And you can get the dizi in all different keys, and your 6 fingers down will give you the tonic. This flute is a B flute, and like with the Indian flutes, they have 2 descriptions of the key. So the Chinese makers will describe the 3 fingers down as the key, and the Western players generally describe the 6 fingers down as the key. So this one says E and it says B on it. I'm going with the B. Now I'm going to replace the membrane on this flute. I've removed the masking tape and I've cleared the area to make sure that there was no residue left, and so it's a nice clean surface. And the flutes come with kits to replace these normally. So mine has come with this strip of paper and this little tiny cane, and what I have to do, because the paper is at the moment it's folded in half, and we've got to split that in half. So very, very delicate. There we are. There we go, put the cane in and then split down there, and I'm going to cut off a little strip about 1.5 centimetres. About that. And then I'm going to open this piece of paper out, so thin. Okay, there we go. So that's what we're going to stick onto the flute. So back to the flute, and the area around here, I'm going to use garlic to stick this paper on. So I have a little tiny piece of garlic that I chopped, and it wants to be the chopped edge that you're using. Garlic's so sticky, isn't it? We're going to go around the area with this piece of garlic. You do get resin that comes in these kits as well, which you have to just dip in water to do this. I used up my resin, so it's well known that you can use garlic as well, and it does work, because I replaced 8 of mine a couple of days ago with garlic and they all buzz really nicely. Okay, so then I'm going to just dab a tiny bit of water, just a fraction, try not to let it go into the hole, and then here's the really delicate bit. With this tiny piece of paper, just going to put that over the hole and position it. Right, there we go. And then I'm going to, hope you can see, I'm going to just stretch it so that it's taut, but not so taut that it tears. Might just have to get a feel for doing it. Okay, this is nearly done. So the paper should be even around the edge of the hole. And then just smooth it down, keep smoothing all the edges. The trick is to not let any air leak. Just got to make sure it's stretched. It really smells. The garlic really smells, but it usually works. Okay, so I'm not going to play that for a minute or two, and I'll come back to that in a couple of minutes and just see whether it's worked. So I've left this flute to rest for about 5 minutes, and I'm going to see if this has worked. Yes, it has. Let's just... Yes, that's buzzing really nicely. nastier tune. So I was mentioning dizi come in lots of different keys, and I'm going to play the same tune on a smaller dizi. This one is in the key of F, and it's a more piccolo kind of sized instrument, still with the same paper. So I'm going to warm it up. Just hope that buzzes. So that, of course, was a little snippet of Can You Feel the Love Tonight. I'll just show you the very beginning for the fingering just to get started off. So fingered A, F sharp, E, A, F sharp, D, B. And from there you can work it out. The panpipes are such a fun instrument to play, and you always get that characteristic glissando when anyone picks up the pipes. This is a set of Romanian panpipes. This set is in the key of C, and it's an 18 pipe set. You can get a 22 pipe set as well, like this, and this set is in the key of G, so I have F sharps on this one. It's a diatonic set of pipes, and you can play 2 octaves on this set. My C is just here, so I've got 2 octaves from the C and then 3 extra notes, so my lowest pipe is a G. To produce a nice sound on the panpipes, you place the pipe underneath your bottom lip in the same sort of position as you put your flute, and press it in to your bottom lip. I've seen some players with it just a little bit further away from their lip. I'm sure flute players wouldn't do that, but I have seen that happen once or twice. So place it underneath your bottom lip, keep them facing downwards like this, and using a nice strong airstream with some strength in your top lip to direct the air down. And some vibrato is nice if possible. And if you blow too gently, you get quite an airy sound, which is okay, but it's nice if you give it just a little bit more oomph. The panpipes are made of bamboo, and the Romanian sets make a really sweet sound. You can play either tongued or slurred. And playing these requires spatial awareness and an awareness of the geography of where the notes are. So obviously each pipe produces a different note. Because of that, if you've not played before, or if you've not played very much, it's nice to start with some simple tunes with next door notes. So and I dug out my Abracadabra flute book, which I use for teaching, to have a look for some inspiration and some nice easy tunes that I could practice the pipes with. I'm going to play Twinkle Twinkle. Mostly these are next door notes, but there's one large interval of a fifth. Well, it's a big interval on the panpipes anyway. And so to help me find that interval, well, firstly, I've put some stickers on my pipes for reference points so that I can pick them up and quickly find any note that I want, referring to what I've labelled. And I'm going to mark with my fingers the starting note, the C, the G, which is the interval of the fifth, and the A, which is the highest note in the piece. And that just helps me be able to find the notes spatially. And that's a good tip for panpipe playing. So it's good to choose tunes like that, and there's plenty of those in Abracadabra and other beginner flute books. This is a set of panpipes from Bolivia, and they make quite a different kind of sound from the sweet sounding Romanian pipes. And I'm just going to show a little bit of the sound quality on these. And you might have noticed I've got 2 rows of pipes and they're tuned in thirds. When I want to play a melody, I need to play both sets of pipes, and so they're spatial but in a slightly different way to how the Romanian pipes are spatial. I'm not going to say too much more about these, but I'm going to just show you a bass set just because they sound quite awesome. I started my video today on a bansuri, and I played a little snippet of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and I played it on the low D bansuri, which makes a nice rich sound. So I'm just going to swap to the octave above, the high D, for a couple of minutes, just to show fingering. And the reason I've swapped to a smaller one is it's slightly easier to see on the video, and also the smaller the bansuri, the easier the fingering is. So if you've not played bansuri before, or if you've not played very much, or if you have small hands, then a smaller instrument is a really good start. This size instrument is like a penny whistle, and you'll get a sort of piccolo pitch. So but it's really nice for fingering. So I'm just going to demonstrate the fingering. It's like on the dizi. So it's a 6-finger hole instrument. This one at the bottom is for tuning. No thumb hole at the back. And all 6 fingers down gives you a D and gives you the tonic. So if I just go through, you've got D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, no fingers, C sharp, D, and you can go up the second octave, and the top D is either this or this. It depends on the instrument and the tuning. You might want to just mess around and see which top D fingering works. You can get a few third octave notes as well. So I'm going to play a little tune on the bansuri. And this is Under the Stars from The Lion King. You'll get such a different characteristic of sound the lower the pitch of the instrument that you go. So if I just pick up one in the key of A, and I'll just show the difference from the high D to the A, and the A gives you a really nice rich kind of sound, and it's still nice and not too much of a stretch to reach to be able to play. So if I play a little bit of the same tune, just a nice richer kind of sound. Now you'll notice on the bansuri that the holes are quite big to cover. If I just compare it on a dizi, do I have the same key? No, I don't have the same key, but if we just have a look, that you can see the difference between the bansuri and the dizi, that the holes on the bansuri are bigger and more spaced apart. And so there's a slightly different finger technique now with bansuri playing, and that's the biggest difference between playing the concert flute and the bansuri, and to some extent some of these other instruments as well. On the concert flute you use the tips of your fingers, whereas on most of these ethnic flutes you're using more of the pad of your finger, and on the bansuri you're using even further back on the pad of your fingers. So it's really that kind of position that you're using. The bigger the instrument, the further back you'll use on certain fingers. So if I get a much bigger, well, if I go back to my low D, you'll see that the holes on this one are really quite spread out, and they're really quite big. So I'm really going to have to use, if I just demonstrate on that first finger, I'm having to use right back here to cover and to be able to stretch for the next finger. Now on this bigger instrument, my handspan isn't big enough and I can't stretch reliably enough to use my third finger, so I'm going to use my little finger, and the same on this hand as well. I need to use that kind of fingering. So and the bigger the instrument that you get, the more I would suggest that you just start by playing with just one finger, two fingers, and just adding and doing little exercises just to get used to the stretch and the different finger position. So just working on a reliable sound and tone production on just one finger, and then working on exercises just working down the instrument. Etc, etc. And you heard that fluffy note when I tried to put down my little finger and it didn't quite cover, and you'll find that that happens until you get used to covering the holes and this very different kind of finger position. Also the way you stand on the bigger instruments. The flute will be more at this angle than holding it up like a concert flute. And if I just get an even bigger instrument, so this is the D, this one's a low G, and you can see I've taped some of those because I can't reach. But on this bigger instrument, it's even easier to demonstrate how holding out to the side like that is a real stretch, because the distance from the embouchure hole to where your fingers are is huge. So it is possible to play like this, but it's not very easy. So you'll see bansuri players on the bigger instruments holding them down like this, and so your head is in this kind of angle and it's more round to the front of you. I played this particular instrument in a show, and nothing too flashy on it because I've had to tape some of the holes to be able to reach, so it was for some very slow melodies. So I've gone back onto my A bansuri, which is a nice comfortable instrument to play, and I'm just going to demonstrate some sliding and pitch bends. So if you peel your fingers off very slowly, then you get some really nice slides. If I demonstrate. And you can also pitch bend or add to the pitch bend with the chin or with the lips. In the tune from The Lion King, Under the Stars, you can pitch bend. The fingering pattern for that, I'll just describe it as the name of the fingered note rather than the actual pitch that's coming out. So it starts A, D, E, D, A, and you can do a nice slide between the D and the E by just peeling back that finger as you put this first finger on. So so between the A and the B as well. A, peel the finger off for the B, A, B, D. I'm going to demonstrate some pitch bending and some half holing in a melody on my low C bansuri. I really love the smoky kind of veiled sound quality of the lower bansuri, and I think you can probably hear that quality in what I'm about to play. Hope you enjoy. I hope you're enjoying the festival. I've had a great time making my video and I'm looking forward to watching others. If you wanted to get hold of any of the instruments that I've demonstrated today, there are a range of places selling these online, and my top 3 recommendations would be Just Flutes, Jazz Musicals and Thomann. Prices range from around the £50 to £500 mark, but any of the things I've played today you could get a decent instrument for around the £100 to £200 mark. Shops are reminding customers at the moment that orders might take slightly longer than usual, and also to leave the instrument for a few days once it arrives before playing. So happy fluting, enjoy the rest of this, and most importantly, stay safe and stay well.